If you've ever cried while feeding your baby or dreaded that next latch because it was so painful, this video is for you. I'm Remi from Her Health Room. I'm a obstetrics and gynecology doctor in the UK with over 10 years of experience, and I'm a mother who cried during breastfeeding. In today's video, I'm going to share my personal story of breastfeeding, how much it hurt, what I learned from it, and if you are in a similar position, what you can do about it. Don't worry, there is help. Stick around. I've created a postnatal recovery questionnaire that I will link down below, and I would like for you to do it. I want to see where you are on your recovery journey and how I can build Her Health Room with you in mind. Stick around. Almost 8 years ago was my first night home from hospital, and I felt confident. You know, I'd survived the first night in hospital, she was fine, we got home. I was trying to get used to breastfeeding. But I was like, I could do this. I put the baby down, she cried, I pick her up, put her on the boob. She settles, right? Easy peasy. I put her down, 20 minutes later, she cries again, I put her back on the boob. And we do this over and over and over again. And at some point in the night, I look at my nipple and I was like, that looks a funny shape. The baby's not settling, my husband's awake, the family that are staying around are all up, and the baby won't stop crying. But by now I'm fed up. What's going on? What's going wrong? They told me breastfeeding would happen. It wasn't happening. It was to the point of frustration. I had to get my husband to go out and buy formula. Yeah, there was no formula in the house because again, they told me breastfeeding came naturally. Needless to say, my conclusions from that night is that breastfeeding for me was not happening naturally, and breastfeeding is painful. It hurts, or at least it hurt me. And in this video, I want to talk to you about when breastfeeding hurts and what you can do about it. A little soreness in the first few days, especially when the baby's latching, that's normal, apparently. But if it's persistent, it's painful, you've got cracked, bleeding nipples, and it's causing you distress, that is not normal. And that's when you do need to seek help, because it often means that something about how you're breastfeeding needs to change. I went on a quest to help stop the pain from breastfeeding, and I'm going to share some of that with you today. You might remember I said every time I took the baby off the boob, it was misshapen. What that led to was me doing a 3 a.m. Google search of why does my nipple look like this? Is it normal that my nipples are now pointed, that there's some white discharge after I've taken the baby off the boob? And what I came across was suggestive of the baby having tongue tie. Tongue tie, where they're not able to open and latch appropriately, and therefore that leads to changes on the nipple. Poor latch. So if they're latching just onto the nipple itself, that can cause pain as well. A yeast infection around the nipple, that can cause burning pain just as the baby's latching on, as well as some other conditions. If you've got a blocked duct, oh my gosh, don't get me started, or a mild mastitis, so infection in the breast, that can all lead to pain. So for my first pregnancy, not only did we have to deal with tongue tie in the first month, we then had to deal with mastitis, blocked ducts, and all of those things just kept snowballing and led to a painful breastfeeding experience. I came across a statistic that only 1% of babies born in the UK are breastfed for 6 months because it is not easy and you need support around breastfeeding. I remember paying for the tongue tie to be divided, an osteopath I was told I was needed for the baby, and then I had a lactation consultant and went to multiple breastfeeding classes to try to get to the bottom of it. There is help. It's just you have to find it. So what can you do? And I say this to all my friends who've gone on to have babies. If they're experiencing discomfort during the breastfeeding, so much so that it's causing them distress, or it's something that they desperately want to do, I would always say you need to seek help. You want to ask the midwives who are looking after you to have a look. I remember doing so for the first and second appointment that they came round, and their response was, it's really unlikely. And then I persisted, and then when we went to get her looked at, yes, she had tongue tie, and that needed to be divided. A lactation consultant would be useful. I remember Googling the heck out of breastfeeding and coming across so many articles, so much advice. Hold the baby this way, hold the baby that way, stand on your head. And having a lactation consultant was really useful because it meant that I was getting advice from someone who was a specialist in that field. A lot of it wasn't necessarily dissimilar to what I'd seen online, to be honest, but it meant that they could watch me breastfeed, they could give me directed feedback. We tried nipple shields, you name it. So seeking expert advice is also key. Remember to listen to your body. Pain is information. It means that something might not be quite right. And like I said, it's not uncommon for you to have some pain while you're initiating breastfeeding. But if it is persistent or it's more than what you can handle and breastfeeding is something that you really want to do, then definitely seek help. And then you can think about things like nipple creams, warm compresses. I even had a lady tell me recently that she did Epsom salts for the nipples or for the breast, and that really made a difference. So there are things that you can do to help make the breastfeeding journey tolerable, bearable, especially if it's something that you want to prolong. Needless to say, although I breastfed in pain for 4 months, I persisted. Honestly, at the detriment of my mental health, I persisted. And I went on to breastfeed both babies to about 12 months. So there is hope. When I was going through the thick of it with my first baby, I remember one of my cousins had said, it was so painful, didn't breastfeed for 2 weeks, but I expressed, then I picked it back up again and we were able to breastfeed for a really long time. And I just needed to hear that in that moment, because it meant that just because it wasn't working on day 4 didn't mean that it wasn't gonna work. And just because I'd taken a break, it didn't mean that I couldn't come back to it. But obviously if you're going to do that with support, making sure that your breast milk supply stays up and that you're expressing, either hand expressing or using the pumps. Needless to say, breastfeeding does not always come easy. It is not natural. And for women who have had that experience, that's great, good for you. But I will never forget that in my group of 6 women from the NCT class, where we all had the same breastfeeding session, only 2 of us, 2 out of 6, managed to breastfeed for a prolonged period of time. And 6 out of 6 were highly disappointed that we were not informed about how hard breastfeeding can be. So if this resonates with you, give me a thumbs up down below. Give me a comment down below. How did you find breastfeeding? Was it something that was painful? And how did you overcome? If you found that this video was useful, please share it with another mum. There's a video on this channel about the 7 lesser known postpartum symptoms that I think would be useful for you to watch. So why don't you go and check that out? Also, why don't you just subscribe to this channel to see all the great content that I will have specifically for you?